to either raise your digital hand or ask your questions in the chat. We will take questions after Þorvarður and Guðrún Þóra will do their talk. So if you have any questions, please write them in the comment section or the chat section. You should all have received the meeting agenda in the mail. And if you have questions, please have them short and clear. I will collect them and gather them at the end of the Þorri's talk. So let's just start the official meeting. First up, we have the Minister of Industries and Innovation with the opening address, Þórdís Kolbrún Reykfjörð Gylfadóttir.
Dear guests, adventure tourism and Iceland, this sounds like a perfect match. We Icelanders are very proud of our country, its nature and history. But at the same time, we realize that we are not the only country in the world that has magnificent natural beauty, a rich history, and a vibrant cultural life. International tourism is a tough competitive industry, and to succeed, we must create our own uniqueness. We need to tell our own story, true stories of the people, the folklore, the food, the cultural life, the weather, waterfalls, the northern lights, everything that makes Iceland a unique and adventurous destination. Iceland is sometimes called the Saga Island, as our biggest contribution to the world culture lies in the sagas that were written some 800 years ago. Most tourists who come to Iceland are here to experience our nature, and many are also interested in the many stories of our culture. No one should underestimate the power of a good story. The Advent Project is based on innovation in adventure tourism. Innovation is about constant effort to do things better today than yesterday by doing new things or implementing old ones in a new way or with new technology. The Advent Project is about adventure tourism companies becoming even better hosts, and as a result, their guests enjoy a better and more memorable experience. Our National Promotion Office, Promote Iceland, has defined 3 preferred target groups for the Iceland tourism industry: the fun-loving globetrotter, the independent explorer, and the cultural comfort seeker. Although they are different in many ways, they can be defined by their lifestyles and by the experiences they are searching for. What they have in common is that they all want to connect to local culture and people and learn about their local destination. They all want to seek the outdoors and wilderness, but they also value safety at the same time. When asked whether they are ready to be physically challenged, the fun-loving globetrotters all raise their hands, but the cultural comfort seekers take a step back. Instead, they prefer comfort and good service, while on the other hand, the independent explorers seek more hardship and challenges. Adventure trips can be as varied as they are many. In these different expectations of the tourists, there are also countless opportunities for companies in adventure tourism. Some travelers are looking for adrenaline rush as they climb a vertical ice wall. Others are looking for a different kind of adventure, which takes place in their taste buds during a food tour of the various delicacies produced in the area. Iceland is a prime destination for experiencing unspoiled nature and its demanding circumstances, and therefore, our country requires a respectful approach. Opportunities for innovation in adventure tourism lie in our age-old experience and know-how of dealing with nature's elements. We were mindful of this when we defined our vision and tourism policy framework until 2030. The tourism policy framework has a strong focus on sustainability and was done in cooperation with the tourism industry and National Association of Municipalities. The framework is fundamental to the future development of Icelandic tourism, and it guides our future vision and priorities in Iceland tourism for the next 10 years. The overarching theme is sustainable development, taking economic, environmental, and social impacts into account. Of course, the social impact refers to both our own communities and our guests. Our vision is that Icelandic tourism is known for sustainable development, quality, and a unique visitor experience, which makes use of technology, innovation, and product development with an emphasis on professionalism, quality, and safety. Our strength lies in our nature, our culture, and our know-how in providing a unique visitor experience. This is what we must focus on to stay competitive for the long term. Improving the skills, quality, and professionalism of the tourism industry is therefore also one of the priorities focus areas. Adventure tourism in Iceland has all the components to speak into this vision of the future based on experience, know-how, and quality service. There is a call for an increase in training courses related to adventure and recreational tourism at the upper secondary level, and at the same time to highlight opportunities for career development for individuals who are choosing future jobs. Opportunities must also be provided to those who are already employed to have their qualification confirmed. This need has been identified in a dialogue between the tourism industry and the education system. The supply of recognized and practical internship in tourism, which takes place in the workplace and at schools with a clear reference to the job, needs to increase. It is one of Advent's principles that those who work in the tourism sector should have something to say about what they and their industry needs most when it comes to developing educational opportunities. The industry and the education system are on the same page here, where the tone of collaboration, flexibility, and practical solutions are paramount to put forward proposals that can have a positive and meaningful impact on the professional development of the tourism in the long term. There are great opportunities to link education and practical tourism skills in a clearer way to the competence framework for the Icelandic education in order to formulate and present a comprehensive study offer in that field. This is exactly what we are aiming for. We are now working on prioritizing implementation, how to combine employment policy and education policy, and the basis will be a conversation between the tourism industry and the educators about formal learning. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to address you today, even if it's not in person, like I was hoping for. And thank you for your contribution towards an increased focus on education in adventure tourism. Thank you.
Thank you, Þórdís Kolbrún. Next up, we welcome the Director of University of Iceland's Research Center in Hornafjörður. He will be speaking on can tourism make a difference? Þorvarður Arnarsson, please.
Hello. Yeah, sorry for that. Yes, hello. My name is Þorvarður, usually called Þorri, and I've been involved as a partner in the Advent project here in Iceland, and I was asked to give a short talk here, and I decided to call my talk, Can Tourism Make a Difference? Now this is of course a huge question, and it's also a very open-ended one. Are my slides up and... Yeah, perfect. So if we switch to the next slide. As I say, it's a really, really big question, and it's a very open-ended one. What do we mean by making a difference? And I think one way to start to answer this question is to subdivide it into other questions. So if something is to make a difference, then we need to first of all know what area or location we're talking about. Where is it making a difference? Also, how how does the root of the driving force behind the difference that's being made? What is happening? How do we see, what evidence do we see of something changing, a difference being made? And who is affected by this? So I'm going to try to sort of tackle this question, can tourism make a difference, by looking into each of these 4 issues separately. Next slide, please. So where? Well, for this talk, I will only be talking about my home area, Hornafjörður. And for those of you who haven't been to Iceland, the area that I'm speaking about is sort of roughly contained within the red box on this map. Next slide, please. To understand this area, and especially the tourism, you also have to know that a very large part of this area is now contained within Vatnajökull National Park. And this map shows the whole park, which is very large, but it also shows that within the park and within the municipality, there is a lot of ice. There's the Vatnajökull ice cap and about 20 outlet glaciers that crawl down from it. Next, please. And this gives you a better idea of what we're talking about. You can make out the outlines of the municipality, the municipal borders in the blue dotted line. This is, I think, the 4th largest municipality in Iceland. And then you see Vatnajökull glacier there. You see the town of Höfn, the only urban area or semi-urban area in the municipality. And then if we switch to the next slide, Stefan. Here you see the park, and the park currently covers around 60% of the land area of the municipality. And if we take the protected area Lónsöræfi along with it, then it's actually a bit more than that. For present purposes, the main thing to remember is that almost all adventure tourism activities that go on here in this municipality, they take place within the park boundaries. But as I'll touch on in a moment, we have seen in recent years a very large growth in adventure tourism in Hornafjörður, and we've seen increasing diversity. So we are sort of cautiously sometimes saying that Hornafjörður is the adventure capital of Iceland. This is the place to go for adventures, slow or fast, soft or hard. And we hope that we will live up to this. Now, next slide, please, Stefan. So turning to the next sub-question, how did this difference that we're exploring, how did it happen? Well, of course, the most important factor was this unprecedented increase in the number of foreign visitors coming to Iceland for almost 10 years. And you can see the graph there. The increase started in 2011, and the increase in numbers coming to Iceland until it peaked in 2018 was about 400%. We went from around 500,000 foreign visitors in 2010 to 2.3 million visitors in 2018. There was a slight lowering in 2019, but that was because one of our airlines collapsed around that time. And if we move to the next slide, you can see that, sorry, this is in Icelandic. The red line is the trajectory or development in Iceland as a whole, and the other lines are for Hornafjörður. If you move to the next slide, Stebbi. And this is just a cutout. The different colors refer, the purple is the number of tourists coming to the municipality as a whole, and then the other colors are for certain areas within the municipality. And here the main point is, first of all, that we had similar increase, if not greater, in Hornafjörður than Iceland as a whole, and also that almost everybody who came to Hornafjörður went into Vatnajökull National Park, either Jökulsárlón, Skaftafell, or both. Next slide, please. And another thing to keep in mind, although I won't speak much about it, is the increase in tourism in the low season, and therefore the decreasing seasonality, which allowed our businesses to chart new grounds and also to operate on a year-long basis. And next slide, please. So what happened? Well, if we look at the number of adventure tour operators, then following the increase, both the annual increase and maybe especially the increase in winter tourism, the number of tour operators in Hornafjörður grew quite a lot, especially those companies that were specializing in glacier tours. So we see here a very strong indication of how the increase in tourism and the change in seasonality, how that impacts the companies and the people working for them. And then next slide, please. We're very fortunate. A couple of months ago, I got access to very detailed figures compiled by SAS, the Association of Local Governments in South Iceland, looking at tourism in the context of employment and other things within this part of Iceland. And according to their figures, in 2019, there were 146 tourism companies based in Hornafjörður. And I forgot to mention that we're talking here about a community of about 2,500 people. So this is quite a lot. Next slide, please. According to these same figures, these activities, they provided 565 full-time jobs. There were 565 full-time jobs in tourism in Hornafjörður alone. And next slide, please. This corresponds to about 1/3 of all of the full-time jobs in the municipality. Next slide, please. But this tells only half of the story, because tourism is that kind of business that many people are not working full-time, but part-time in tourism. So if we look at the number of both full and part-time jobs in tourism in Hornafjörður, then these were 1,152. And if you go to the next slide, this then corresponds to almost half of all of the full and part-time jobs in the municipality. So I think we don't have figures going, well, probably could find figures going back in time, but this is sort of like a snapshot of tourism in Hornafjörður at its apex in 2019. And it goes, I think, without saying that this is not only hugely important for the economic sector, but this has reverberations throughout our whole life as individuals and as members of this community. And then this is the final statistics. According to these figures, the turnover of the companies in Hornafjörður was 8.5 billion Icelandic crowns in 2018. This is equivalent to around 53 million euros or 47 million British pounds. And we can also see from this slide, which shows all of the 15 municipalities in South Iceland, that Hornafjörður is the largest income earner in tourism, even though it's only the 5th, I think, largest municipality. So a lot of money coming in a lot of jobs, a lot of companies, a lot of opportunities. But then the final question is, if we move to the next slide, Stebbi, is who? Who gains from this and who loses, who is affected in a positive way and who in a negative way. And if we go to the next slide, then it's quite clear that there are, and this is based on research, at least partly. We have research to back up these findings. I would have liked to have done much more research, but at least we do have some research that we can build on. You'll have to trust me about that. So the positive effects, of course, on the tour companies, increased revenues, increased time of business, on the owners of these companies that are many finally seeing the fruits of their labors for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Tourism workers getting the more jobs for full-time jobs and in some cases better jobs. The municipality, various effects, most sort of simply increased flow of revenue from all of these thriving businesses and the people that are getting paid. The community, many ways. For example, the new restaurants that we have, destination image to some extent, yes. National park, more questionable. And then turning to the next slide, the negative, I think it's clear that the most negative impacts have come on the tourism workers, to some extent the community as well. Also, the tourism companies, not just here, but all and they've been utilizing public goods and services, and therefore competing to some extent with the local inhabitants. Individual owners, they have also to some extent been negatively affected by just having too much to do and not being able to really be part of society. The national park has suffered because mainly because the amount of money, funds from the government has not followed the increase in tourism and the increased revenues coming to the government from tourism. And then the destination image may also have suffered because of overcrowding and some quality issues. Okay, next. But there are a lot of things that we don't really know about and that we can't really start to talk about now, but that we have to understand. And these are the impacts, both positive and negative, on things such as quality, the environment, innovation, culture, well-being, and for us here today, not in the least, education. And I ask you to keep this in mind for the rest of the day. The next slide. And the question that underlines all of the others is the question, why? Why are things happening? Why do they affect us in a positive and negative way, etc.? And one semi-answer to this, next slide, and I'm almost finished, is the bigger context that's very relevant to Hornafjörður, not necessarily to other parts of Iceland, but it's this triangular relationship between protected areas, here, especially Vatnajökull National Park, regional development, and then tourism. And what has come out, next slide please, Debbie. What has come out of research that I was involved with the Icelandic Tourism Research Center is that there's a almost complete breakdown of communication between these three sectors. This is something that we need to study and fix. And then next one. And this, I said that the increase of tourism that we experienced for almost 10 years was unprecedented. Well, Here we are again in unprecedented times, and this is the opposite. This is tourism, the global. These are figures from the Icelandic Tourism Board, and you can see that tourism has in some months gone down by almost 99%. I mean, it's and at the moment the tourism in Iceland is 57% lower than it was in the same period last year, and probably we will have maybe 40% of the tourists that we had last year at the end of the year. So, next slide, please. And this is my final slide. This is to try to cheer you up. This is what we are talking about, or one aspect. It's the wonder of nature, the wonder of being in nature and having adventures. We need to find a balance. We need to find a way to survive both the slumps and the highs, and always become stronger. And then final, thank you.
Thank you, Þorvarður. Next up, we have the director of the Icelandic Tourism Research Center with her talk on stepping stones towards an enriching and responsible tourism. We welcome Guðrún Þóra Gunnarsdóttir.
Yes, good morning. There is some echo going on now. So do you see my slides? Did you say yes? I didn't hear you.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, okay, good, thank you. Good morning to all of you, and thanks for this kind invite. My name is Guðrún Þóra, and I am the director of the Icelandic Tourism Research Center. I'm based in Akureyri, north of Iceland. And before I joined the center, I was at the tourism department at Hólar University for 2 decades in total. And it's an honor to participate in this final seminar of this interesting project on adventure tourism. And to some extent, during those 3 years, you have probably discussed everything I'm going to share with you here today. And I think that is the beauty of a project like Advent. It is an opportunity to have a forum for new ideas and ways of doing things, but equally important, I think, is the fact it gives the participants both the time and the space to kind of stop and think and reflect. And maybe that's where we are all today. Now, when the unthinkable has happened and tourism in the world has come to a full stop, like Þorri just showed you, closed borders and lockdowns in individual countries have caused the tourism sector to be hit particularly hard in comparison to other sectors. And this has created a strong debate and discussions all around the world regarding the future of tourism, or rather how and in what way we will restart tourism again, or how we should start tourism again. And people almost in every corner of the world, as I said, are using this time for reflection and debates regarding post-COVID tourism. I have to admit that I'm maybe not too optimistic that we'll see dramatic changes in the way we go about the business of tourism once the pandemic releases its grip on the world. I think the eagerness to start again will be very strong and also very pressing because just in terms of economic necessity. But I think that this really incredible pause in tourism worldwide has brought tourism in the spotlight as never before. And I think that has facilitated maybe a broader knowledge of the tourism landscape. And most importantly, more people, not the least the politicians and other decision makers, are realizing that tourism is so much more than pure business. And to some extent, tourism is a lens we look through and observe our environment and cultures, as well as ourselves. And what I want to do in the next 2 minutes are my preliminary thoughts about what I think are the 3 strong pillars or stepping stones towards tourism development that can potentially enable thriving communities, enrich our lives, and take responsibility for its actions and decisions. It's maybe easier done, said than done, possibly. And education is the first stepping stone that I want to discuss. Education has already been discussed quite a bit here today or this morning. But I'm not only talking about formal educational programs within the school system. Of course, we need that. And we need it probably more now than ever before. But what I'm thinking about is really something that I call the learning environment. And it's a kind of a culture that acknowledges the importance of a systematic approach to tourism development. And the fact that we constantly need to be educating ourselves about the different tourism processes. Tourism is an incredibly complex phenomenon. And we need to emphasize an active and creative learning environment that has a capacity to foster conscious and thoughtful tourism development. And this is immensely important in places that are adapting to new industries and practices, transforming to become a tourism destination, just the way Þorvarður has described his region, that is definitely now a tourism destination. So there's places moving away from traditional economies such as fisheries, manufacturing, and agriculture. Of course, this economic reconstructing has been going on now for decades, but there still remain many places that are in this transition period and have tourism development on their agenda as a way of empowering and strengthen troubled communities. And it takes a lot to adapt to and embrace this service and experience-oriented economy. And many scholars have pointed out how imperative human and intellectual capital in individual regions is for successful innovation and development. And lack of education, formal or not formal, results all too often in lack of professional service and organization. Things just more or less happen. So there is a lack of leadership. And this can pose a problem in regards of serious tourism development, especially in the light of an ever-increasing competition between existing and emerging destinations. And one thing to remember regarding tourism is how important the community is, which has already also been touched upon. But the community is one of the biggest puzzles in the tourism picture and has a lot to do in relation to image building, and images are, of course, of great importance in the tourism world, as we all know very well. But it's also important that we educate people to see the opportunities that exist in their community. The more we understand our tourism resources, be it culture, nature, history, community, the more opportunities we have for innovative and diverse product development. And tourism products that are deeply rooted and embedded in the local community have the potential to offer a unique experiences, the unique experiences that tourists are always looking for, as well as enhancing the local population's place attachment and pride. And that leads us to stepping stone number 2. And in a way, I'm still talking about the learning environment and the importance of informed decision making. We have all become much more aware about the importance of understanding how residents experience tourism, and the debate about over-tourism in recent years in many European cities, and also here in Iceland, brought attention to many of the challenges communities have experienced when sharing their space with tourism, and thoroughly listed some of them on one of his slides just before. But at the same time, there is really a place or a region or even a country that doesn't have tourism development on their agenda. And often, as I said before, to combat negative trends within the community, such as aging population or unemployment. And a number of scholars have pointed out that in that context, tourism should not only be seen as an economic development device, but also a strategy for community development. And that means that we need to better understand tourism and the reason we want tourism in our community. We also need to remember that this is a process of change and transformations, and that constantly needs to be evaluated and adapted to the needs of the community. And why we do tourism? What is the purpose? What do we want from tourism? And what can tourism do for us? And that's a bit different thing than asking what do we need to do for tourism. But by determining the why of tourism, what communities actually want to achieve by being a destination, and definitely what they want to avoid also. Once the why is understood, then it becomes a matter of learning what it will take to properly manage communities as destination in ways that will achieve healthy growth through healthy economic processes. Processes where the interests of one party are not prioritized at the expense of others. A lot of studies have shown that communities vary quite a bit in their capacity to embrace tourism as a positive tool for community development. And communities are also very complex and have to adhere to a number of often very, very different stakeholders. And we need more studies, like Þorvarður also pointed out. We need more research at a local level of the interplay between tourism and the community. But it definitely seems that the capacity to change and community dynamics are important factors in this process. And the third and last stepping stone that I want to talk about is excellence, maybe being the adventure capital of Iceland, as just mentioned. But striving for excellence means, in essence, that we are trying to do our best. And we all know that we gain better results if we love what we are doing. And when we love something, we care, we nurture, we protect. And I think it's important that we introduce more love in tourism. And love also means that we pay attention, we listen, and we support. And if you think about it, that's really what hospitality means. And here I'm not only talking about hospitality in individual businesses or demonstrated by tourism workers, but also on a community level. And it's interesting, actually, we have been doing quite a bit of studies on the views of Icelanders here at the Research Center regarding tourism in Iceland, and what and this has been done in recent years while we have had this incredible growth in tourism numbers that you saw on the graph that Thorri had just here. 400% increase in few years, which is quite a bit. But what really comes out of those surveys and interviews we have had with people all over Iceland is the fact that they feel the most passionate about the issue that Iceland as a nation is capable of being or showing or demonstrating enough hospitality. There is very little resentment towards tourists, despite the numbers. And the negativity we detect is criticism towards the industry and the authorities that they are not doing good enough jobs as hosts. So to some extent, what they are really talking about is that they are not taking responsibility. And responsible tourism is a concept that has been very much in focus the last decade. And Professor Harold Goodwin, the founding father, or one of the founding fathers and mothers, and he is a strong advocate for responsible tourism. And he defines responsible tourism this way. Responsible tourism is about using tourism to make better places for people to live in and better places for people to visit, in that order. And that's a very important note. And that's why the mantra of empathizing, understanding, and learning needs to be ingrained in all our tourism practices. That's how we strive towards excellence, I think. So those were my 3 stepping stones. I suppose they are not surprising in any way. And as I said in the beginning, you probably discussed this one way or the other during the last 3 years. But I do hope there are some food for thought and maybe for some discussions now. TEFI, which is a network of educators, researchers, industry actors, and community members that has a goal to seek a progressive approach to tourism education and research. They recently issued a call for papers with the title Repurposing Tourism, Engaging Our Radical in Tourism Education. And the call states that purpose is intentional and requires a commitment to iterative learning and reflexivity about one's decisions, behaviors, and choices, end of quote. And in essence, that's all I wanted to say. We need tourism with purpose. The post-COVID world will be different. How different? We don't know yet, since we are still very much in the midst of this pandemic. But we will definitely need creative and critical thinking to adapt to a new world. And tourism really has all of the potential to be a positive force in that transition period. Tourism can make a difference. And I've sometimes used the language of the theater as an analog for discussing tourism development, because tourism is very much a state phenomena. Tourism is always about structured and managed interactions of people and places. And I think it's very important that we have a good understanding of how we can put on a good show. Thank you very much for, yeah. So I will try to stop sharing.
Thank you. Thank you, Guðrún Þóra. Just to remind you, after our next speaker, we have a little time for questions. So if you have questions after our next speaker about previous talks, please raise your digital hand or write them in the comment section. For our next speaker, we have the project coordinator of the Advent project, and she will be introducing the Advent project. Please welcome Hulda Laxdal Hauksdóttir.
Good day to you all. In this presentation, I will tell you a bit about this project, Adventure Tourism in Vocational Education and Training, or Advent as we call it. Eyjólfur has already informed you about how the idea of this project developed and led to us applying for funding to be able to implement the idea. We turned to Erasmus Plus, an EU program that supports education, training, youth and sport in Europe. And after handing in our application in the sector of vocational education and training, and the exciting wait for an answer, our application for a 3-year project was granted, and we started our work in August 2017. So, what was it that Erasmus Plus granted? Let's take a look. In short, they granted the work of 8 educational research and destination management operations from Finland, Scotland, and Iceland to develop educational material in active cooperation with small and medium enterprises that are working in the tourism sector. These co-workers were from Finland, Kainuu Vocational College in Kuusamo, Natopolis in Kuusamo also, it's a DMO, and Kamp University of Applied Science in Kajaani. In Scotland, there were the University of the Highlands and Islands and the DMO Lochaber Chamber of Commerce, both in the Scottish Highlands. And in Iceland, it was the Upper Secondary School of Austur-Skaftafellssýsla, or FAS, the DMO of Visit Vatnajökull, and the Research Center of Háskóli Ísland, or the University of Iceland. And if I tell you a bit about the structure, we did at our kickoff meeting in Finland in September 2017, we decided on forming an executive committee that would hold the joint managerial responsibility of our work. And we also formed 3 groups that each worked on these specific subjects: education, research, and innovation. And what did we do? Well, we talked a lot and wrote quite a lot of emails. But luckily, we had a chance to meet in person before the pandemic hit us, and we are really thankful for that. But of course, we also used online tools for our communication. And then we just did our best to work on the things that we said we would do in our application to the beneficiary, and that was to provide innovative and interesting learning material for the adventure tourism sector. It has been an important part of the work to evaluate it as it has proceeded. We did that with self-evaluation and with surveys and in-depth interviews. And with the people that took part in pilot testing the study modules. I'll tell you about that later, or the modules. It was priceless contribution from the SMEs to get their opinion to help us see where we were doing well and what could be improved. And now when we are getting to the end of the project, our main work is to finish up our reports, and that work is going well. And a bit about the reports. First, there's the handbook. It will describe the implementation of the project, its methodology, and results. It's like an overall paper of the project. The module report will describe and document the development of the 9 new study modules, their implementation and effectiveness. A certification report describes the methodology developed and used to validate and/or accreditate the study modules. It will also document the monitoring framework for study modules and its results. And then the one with a long name, the working paper on education for innovation in adventure tourism. That document will mainly discuss the implementation of the innovative educational approach to entrepreneurship in adventure tourism. And finally, the evaluation report. It will describe and evaluate the implementation of the project as a whole and its results. In addition, the quality management process will also be described there. Well, I'll now tell you a bit about the core of the project, the modules themselves. And the attempt with the modules or with the project was to develop innovative initiatives and in adventure tourism, education and training that would suit SMEs, their employees, but also the educational systems and the society. And also, the attempt was to reorganize vocational studies and the studies of adult students to be in better accordance to the aim of lifelong learning, always to continue. Well, that was what we had it for. And how did we do that? So, the main idea of Advent is that those individuals who are working in tourism are also those people that must have a say in decisions about educational offers in their field. So they were involved in the study module design. Therefore, the content of the project is built on the SME's idea in cooperation with educational and research institutions. Well, there will always be a need to develop study programs, but that alone might not be enough to meet the needs. Our thought was that not every teaching method would suit us in this process, and decided to put weight into the interaction between teaching institutions and tourism SMEs. So how were we to approach the teaching methods so that it would enhance the interaction and best meet the learning needs of adult learners? Well, the first thing was to go from pedagogy, that is the art and science of helping children learn, over to andragogy. That is the methodology of adult learning, where the work is directed towards self-actualization, gaining experience, and problem solving. To look at what andragogy can consist of is, for example, the approach that the adult learners know what it is that they are after. They use the study and the help of facilitators to become active agents in changing their social circumstances. Learners use life experience as a foundation to see and reflect on the experience of learning and use the outcome to make decisions or solve problems in real situations. In community of practice, people learn through the process of sharing information and experiences with the group. They learn from each other and have the opportunity to develop solutions to problems they are facing. It is also important to take the learning society into the picture, but that is a society where learning is constantly ongoing to deal with the new challenges and ever-changing circumstances. With these definitions as a working base, we were ready for the next part to form the modules. And we made 9 study modules. And they are, we can say that they are the yield of the project. And they are all based on the experience of SMEs and educational institutions that some have years of experience in tourism, outdoor and recreational teaching. In the study module making, we decided on 2 different types of modules. Where type A study modules are new or redesigned existing vocational courses developed by instructors or educational institutions. But type B study modules are totally new courses developed by the SMEs, the tourism SMEs, in cooperation with educational institutions. Finland and Scotland approached their modules as type A, having a lot of experience in this field. But Iceland approached their modules as type B. It turned out that the lines between type A and B were in some cases not clear at all. But we might discuss that more in the panel later today. Here you can get a glimpse of the modules that were developed and pilot tested during the project. I will not dwell on this slide, as you will hear about the modules after our coffee and tea break that is coming up in a few minutes. But here we have the names and of the modules where they took place and some footage. But I would first like to show you where you can learn more about the project. We have done our best to have our work visible, both on local and social media. And early in the process, we launched our webpage. And let's have a short look at that. So here we have Advent's website. It is written in the participant language. You can have it here in English. It is in Icelandic and also Finnish. And here we have, it's not finished, of course. We will, that will be one of the last parts that we will finish doing. But here we can read about the project. We can look at the modules. Now we have like a short description of what it was about. We have here the syllabus, the teaching guidance of what we were doing. Some of the modules we have quite nice videos, and if I show you a short version here.
Traveling is just the best education ever. If you're being taught things on the way and kind of exchange thoughts and, well, how do you do this? Or we've got the same problem here. This is how we are dealing with it. Just that exchange alone is just worth the journey wherever you go.
That's kind of eye-opening as well, how they have been using the same tools in different situations.
If I was here alone, I have basically nobody to share.
I hope that the presentation has given you some idea of what this project is about. Before we head out for our short break, I, on behalf of FAS, want to thank our project partners in Scotland and Finland for an incredible and educative journey. I also give thanks to all the people that from the SMEs and others that took part in developing and pilot testing this module. And I thank Margrét Jóhannsdóttir at the Icelandic Erasmus Plus Agency for her highly appreciated support in this process. And finally, thanks to all of you for taking part in this conference with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hulda. So now we have a few minutes for questions before we take a short coffee break. So if anybody has a question, I encourage you to raise your digital hand or write your question in the chat section. While we wait if questions come. Þorri raised his hand.
I often find myself in this position of being the icebreaker. Maybe it's just because I tend to talk too much. But my question is for Guðrún Þóra. And it's you haven't been directly involved in Advent. Well, you have as a participant and a speaker. Do you have any ideas about what we can do to meet the post-COVID situation and to empower ourselves to develop a truly responsible tourism? Where do we need as educators to weigh in, most importantly, in the post-COVID era? But I know you can answer it. Thank you.
Yes, it's a big question. If I had the answer, I really think it's important at this time, during this time, is to create this community, to really strengthen the ties and keep the conversation going, because those are really, really difficult times. And for the companies, I mean, many of them are really hard hit, and we have to understand, I mean, just the feelings and the things that individual operators are going through, and of course the tourism workers as well, and their families. So it's difficult to really just think how and comprehend how this is right now. But as educators, I think we really need to give sort of or provide some opportunities for this kind of discussions. they can be really informal and probably best if they're not too formal. And I think a lot of what you have been doing in this project, particularly where you have been listening to the SMEs or the tour operators and have them put forward the ideas. I think that's when something happens. When you create that kind of a forum and give the possibility. And I think also it's important that the people in the industry feel that we do care and we do mind how things are, how things are going. And we also need just to ask the companies, what do you need now? What kind of support? I mean, obviously it is the financial support, which is the important thing now when, there is no cash flow and it's just difficult that way. And we have not seen yet exactly how those measures that the government have been initiating will actually, fare or do for those different types of companies, because it's also the fact that the different sectors within the tourism industry are differently hit and have different potentiality or possibilities to respond to the crisis. But as I say, I really think it's and I think it has to be based on individual characteristics of each community. And you are fortunate in your area in southeast of Iceland. I don't know about Scotland and Finland in this matters, but you have extent environment with the tourism industry. There are a number of development projects that you guys have been engaged in, both on a small and bigger scale. And I think that has given you some more secure sort of base, I could say. And you know a little bit how to interact with each other, the educators, the researchers, and the tourism industry. In some other areas that I know of, we have a long way to go to be in the same steps. This is not answering your question, but it's just thoughts.
Takk Guðrún Þóra.
Thank you. We have one more question, but we're a little bit over into our coffee break. So if you could keep the answer as short as possible for now. The question is from Steve Taylor to either Guðrún Þóra or Þorri. Are there any initiatives in Iceland now that will help to balance the needs and desires of communities and tourists, as you talked about? So if you could keep it quick if you can, sorry.
Maybe I'll take the first step. I think, unfortunately, the answer is for the most part no. As Guðrún Þóra mentioned, of course, the most pressing matter at the moment is to keep the companies alive, keep the communities alive in an economic sense. But there is research going on about how the pandemic is affecting Icelanders as a whole, growing anxiety, increasing suicides, unease, especially anxiety amongst younger people, isolation, basically everything that sort of goes against what we want to stand for. But Guðrún, do you want to add or contest this?
Basically, I agree with you, and I think we just need more. We haven't been maybe monitoring this enough, so we need much more knowledge about how things are really playing out, definitely. But I think we need to emphasize that tourism is a force that can be positive in the long run. So we have to talk tourism up in a way, in that sense. It is a strong force that can be really influential in terms of how we come out of this pandemic post-COVID.
Yeah, I just want to add that I hope that it's clear that people like myself and Guðrún Þóra and Eyjólfur and Hulda, that we do care. And I think that it's not only a statement, but it also tells you that we care because we think tourism does matter and that its positive effects can outweigh the negative ones. But thank you.
Okay, thank you both for your answers and questions. Now we will take a short 10-minute break, coffee break. So please stand up and stretch your legs, get some coffee or water. And while we have the break, we will be showing some videos from a few of the modules. So you can enjoy them while the break is going on. Thank you. So welcome back, everybody. Next up, we will hear from each country where they will tell you about the modules held in their area. First up, we will hear from Finland. We are having a little bit of technical issues, but Haukur Ingi raised a hand. Haukur, do you have a question? Okay, if you have a question, Haukur, you can send it in the chat. We will answer it now or after when the discussion section is on. They're still working on the video. Please bear with us while we figure this out.
Can you hear me? Arndís, Laura?
Yeah, Haukur.
Yeah, I just wanted to and thank you for hosting this conference. It's nice to be a part of it and interesting to hear all of the topics. But I was wondering, because both Guðrún and Þorri mentioned two things that rose questions, both about those that are working in the industry get a nice sort of relaxing time now because of COVID, which is for sure true, and also about we going to the same pace as well as we get vaccine for the virus and all of that. But I wanted to raise the question about what do you think about now using the time to make long-term manifesto, or sort of where are we going to be in the long run, and use then the time that we have now with the companies to build it up with the Adventist project, and maybe even get assistance from the government. So basically those that would attend and have no time would be able to get paid for their work and their contribution for the long-term sort of development and all of that. So all I wanted to say.
I'm very sorry, Haukur. We didn't hear you very well. Could you repeat it in a few words?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I wanted to thank you for the conference. It's nice to be a part of it. But I wanted to just ask questions, or let's say come with a point that both Guðrún and Þorri mentioned. Guðrún talked about after the COVID situation resolves that we would go to the same place as we were. But my idea was, why don't we take a step back and try to make a long-term plan where we want to head, where we want to be in the future. And Þorri mentioned that now the people working in tourism have free time, a lot of it. And of course, it's important to think about their financial structure. And my idea was basically, can we do both? Because use the time of people's knowledge and to develop where we want to be in the long term, And if the government would actually then support a project like this, that and pay individuals to take part of such a project as business owners and develop then a long-term, let's say, manifesto. Where do you want to be in the future?
Yeah, thank you, Haukur Ingi, for very, very interesting situation. That first of all, of course, I absolutely agree that we need to use this downtime to not only go over what went well and what didn't go well during this growth phase, but we also need to use that as a basis for deciding how we're going to proceed in the future. And this idea, because we, as the minister mentioned, and as we have been working in Advent, it's very crucial and absolutely central to our work to engage in dialogue with the companies and to not only draw from their experience, but to empower them, to involve them directly in what we're doing. And therefore, the idea that, if I understand you correctly, that the government would give support to programs which would basically pay tourism companies to take part in development and in innovation alongside knowledge providers, educational institutions, research institutions. This is an absolutely brilliant idea. And thank you for suggesting this. Guðrún Þóra, I see you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just completely agree. And just to correct, I'm not saying that everything will be the same as usual, business as usual. I said that I was not too optimistic that we would be able to use this period. But therefore, I think your idea is completely great. And I think, as I alluded to before, I think actually in your region, you have the potential to actually use this in a constructive way this time, because you have just ended this project and you are warm, so to speak. And it's often with projects like this that the participants, after it ends, and then the question comes, what now? And sometimes we have heard that people, especially the participants from the industry, feel like they are a little bit left alone, that they have been in a structured environment, learning environment for 2 or 3 years in a project like this, Adventure Tourism. But then the funding period is over, and those who initiate the project and maybe led it, they are into new projects. But those who participated, the SMEs, they are still trying to work through those ideas, and often they need support. So if it's possible to locally in each place work with the participant and maybe include more, of course, that are interested, I think this is a great time. And I definitely think that it's very important that each company now uses this time, if they have the possibility and the capacity, to also look at their own business and see if they want to change the business model, if they want to seek new opportunities that might add some more pillars under the business and make it more sustainable in an economic way. So yeah, it's a good suggestion. Thank you.
Yeah, so please send us more questions like this. This is what we need, Guðrún Þóra and I and our colleagues. We need input like this from everybody, especially the people in the companies. I see Haukur Ingi's suggestion as even maybe more radical, Guðrún Þóra, because if we sort of were able to sit down at the same table with the companies, with municipal officials, with the managers of Vatnajökull National Park, for example, then we could use this downtime to sort of create a much more interactive, co-creative platform for working together. And you know, it's clear that the government will need to help out the tourism companies for the next months, or I don't know, years, I don't know. And also that there will be a lot of people that will be on unemployment. So why don't we use this in a positive way to create the possibility for them to use their time in a productive way?
Thank you. Haukur, you raised your hand again, please.
We should agree, and I think it should be time now to develop sort of for the state, like for the Icelandic government, to make long-term plans for tourism. How do we want to have it in the future? So that was my point. Thank you.
Thank you, Haukur, for your question. They are still working on the video. It's almost there. We're gonna start. Eyjólfur.
Yeah, thank you, Haukur, for these questions and these thoughts. As you know, the government of Iceland is planning to have some opportunity for those who are looking for new jobs to educate themselves for a year and a half. And I think we can use this also in a way to develop the connection between educational institutions and companies and research institutions, like we are trying to do in Advent in a much larger scale. And maybe a lot of people have a lot of time now that they didn't have during the Advent years. So I think we can use the opportunity to do a lot of good things in this area for the next 2 months.
Thank you, Eyjólfur. So we're gonna start with the videos now from the modules. Yeah, we will start with the Icelandic module.
Good day to you all. My name is Hulda Laxdal Hauksdóttir and I'm a teacher in FAS and Advent's project coordinator. I also run a small tourism business. I'm going to talk to you about the Icelandic Advent modules, along with 2 other people from the tourism SMEs, Einar Rúnar Sigurðsson and Sólveig Valgerður Sveinbjörnsdóttir. Our work on the Icelandic modules started with tourism SMEs in the area getting together in FAS to discuss what knowledge, skills and competence they felt needed in the field of adventure tourism and what methods would be interesting to use to get it across. The main conclusion was about safety issues in all activity, locality, culture and learning how to be more visible on the market. The next step in the development was to invite people from various fields in the area along with SMEs to a workshop where participants worked according to their interest and experience on one of the topics I already mentioned. Based on that work, it was decided that the 3 Icelandic modules would be Ice Adventure Planning and Skills, Localism, Commodification and Gentrification, and Storytelling with Smartphones. These modules are all built up as Type B study modules, that is, a course developed by tourism SMEs in cooperation with FAS, the school. In the teaching, the emphasis was on engaging participants in a community of practice based on self-learning and learning by doing. The Icelandic modules are primarily intended for SMEs, but can also be available to adventure tourism students in schools. Well, now Einar will tell you about the first Icelandic module.
Hi, my name is Einar Rúnar Sigurðsson and I run a small family company called From Coast to Mountains here at the base of Iceland's highest mountain. I'm actually the oldest mountain guide in Iceland in working years. I started my glacier and mountain tours in spring 1994, and my company is also the first company to offer ice cave tours on daily basis. I met the Advent group when they arrived here in Southeast Iceland, and I helped the teachers, Sigurður Ragnarsson and Eyjólfur Guðmundsson, the headmaster of FAS, to do 2 courses with the group. The first day was a basic glacier walk and an ice cave visit on Skaftafellsjökull glacier. We had nice wintry condition with the snow-covered glacier, and my focus on this course was to explain the preparation and hazards for doing tours with clients on a trip like this. We also got to witness firsthand how crowded ice caves can be in Iceland nowadays. The second adventure we did together was a 2-day course. We started in the morning preparing our backpacks with what we needed for staying overnight in the ice cave. After driving the 4-wheel drive trail to the east side of the glacier Breiðamerkurjökull, we hiked 3.5 kilometers across part of the glacier to an area called Treasure Island that is right behind the ice lagoon Jökulsárlón. There we explored the ice caves, and we also did a ice climbing course. We were climbing in a 50-meter vertical moulin that was in the ice cave, and in the late afternoon, in the evening, we prepared and we cooked our dinner, and well, late in the night we were blessed also to have a little Northern Lights show. Well, impressive for the British, maybe not so for the Finnish. But then we all crawled into our glacier-graded sleeping bags and went to sleep. The night was interesting for everybody, I'm sure, but probably not the most comfortable night of their lives. The next day after breakfast, we hiked back to the civilization, and then we had a soup meeting in the restaurant Hali, where everyone gave a little feedback from the experience. Well, the main focus on this course was to stay comfortable in the glacier world overnight, and to do more or less everything we do in these kind of trips. And it was actually a very good platform also to tell stories about life of my forefathers that had to live in this hostile world of glaciers, and of course also a good place to discuss the effect of climate change on the glacier landscape around us. I myself had a marvelous time spending those 3 days with the group from these 3 countries, and I learned a lot myself. Thank you very much.
Hi, here I am again, and my name is Dilhulda. Now I will talk to you about the second Icelandic module, localism, commodification and gentrification. This module was developed to give insight into the importance of localism in tourism. The emphasis was on the concepts of commodification and gentrification, the interaction between people, culture and nature, and also to address the danger of local ceasing to be originally local and turning into just a product. Three SMEs owners and one researcher completed the design of this module and delivered it as the leading participants. They were Óskar Arason, guide and owner of Local Guide, Vésteinn Fjölnisson, guide and owner of Ice Hoover, Guðrún Þóra Gunnarsdóttir from the Research Center of the Icelandic Tourist Board, and myself, guide and owner of Höfn Local Guide. Other participants were 5 and came from the project's partners' countries. This module was pilot tested in July 2019 and was in 4 parts. It started with Guðrún Þóra giving an online lecture on the concept of the module with the aim to give participants a deeper understanding of it. Then 3 field trips were offered in different surroundings to experience these concepts. Óskar led the group kayaking on Ice Lagoon, where participants paddled between icebergs and experienced changes in nature that appear in the form of ice lagoons forming in front of most of the outlet glaciers in the area. The next field trip was led by Vésteinn, and in this part the participant visited Vésteinn's family farmstead, discussed the changes that have taken place there the last decade, mainly moving away from traditional farming into offering activity and cultural tourism. A farm that was deserted in the last century because of the encroachment of the glacier was also visited, but at that time the climate was much colder than it is today. I was the leading participant in the last part. Our field tour took place in the fishing village of Höfn, where we walked around the harbor area, visited buildings that mostly were originally built to serve the fishing industry, but all have a new and totally different role today. In all the module parts, engaging conversations took place about changes in nature, climate changes, society changes, and its effect on community, culture, and localism. The module went as planned, and participants were really pleased with it. They felt that they had gained a deeper understanding of the subject and that they could easily transfer it to their local area. They stated that this module would benefit SMEs as they could better provide quality service and experience after taking part in it. But the participants did not find this module highly innovative, as they were all used to outdoor learning and learning by doing. But they really enjoyed participating in it. Well, that is it for the second Icelandic module, and I'll now give the floor to Solveig. Thank you.
Hello all, my name is Solveig Sveinbjörnsdóttir and I'm the head teacher of the Mountaineering Department of FAS. I also own a small tourism company called Local Icelander along with my partner Guillaume Colibay. I was one of the leading participants of one of the Icelandic modules, Storytelling with Smartphones. Along with Guillaume from Local Icelander, Stefán Mantler from Stepman and Þorvarður Árnason from the University of Iceland. When we started to plan this module, the idea was to list out how we, as small business owner in tourism, use our smartphones. How we use this little device in our pocket to promote our business. We found out that we mainly use it to document our daily tours and adventures through the lenses of our phone, which we then share to our social media accounts to show people what to expect and what we are offering. The idea of the course was born around this, and we decided to focus on how we can use our smartphones to take photos and how to make great visual content for social media and how to get it out there. We mixed together both lectures and practical lessons. We focused on how to use the smartphone as a camera and how we can use the manual settings to create even better content. We focused on storytelling through the photos, which we then adopted to the outdoors, and participants got to practice in a variety of locations and conditions. For example, in an ice cave, where the light can be very difficult for photographing, especially with the phone. We also looked into the feature of social media and how we can use them to benefit our business and how we can be more aware of what kind of content we are putting out there and why. We talked about how we can make business visible on social media and which social media platforms are appropriate for different companies. We focused on learning by doing and how to participate in a professional community based on self-learning. The module Storytelling with Smartphones went really well and participants found the module useful to their business operations and projects. Participants indicated that they had increased their skills and were motivated to use them in the future. Participants found the teaching and the knowledge useful and appropriate to the module. What we can improve for future modules is to mix better together classroom days and field studies. In general, participants were really happy with the course and they found that they can use the information once returned to their own area. On behalf of all the leading participants of the Icelandic modules, I'd like to thank all the participants in the modules and all the people that helped us out in one way or another to make this module real. Thank you all.
Thank you to Iceland for their introduction of the modules. And next we will hear the module introduction from Scotland.
Good morning, my name is Steve Taylor. I'm the Director for the Centre for Recreation and Tourism Research at the University of the Highlands and Islands here in Scotland. I've never actually done this before, so please do bear with me. I'm recording this on a cold November morning and it's just about to start raining. Anyway, I'm pleased to say that I've been involved with this project for quite a long time now, actually since the beginning, since it was actually just an idea really, and I'm really happy with the way that it's turned out, and I think it has the potential to have quite a bit of impact really, and meaningful impact on the sort of tourism businesses, adventure tourism businesses. So what I'm going to talk to you about this morning is really the three modules that took place in Scotland in 2018 and 19, and they were adventure therapy, coastal interpretation and guiding and interpretation. And for each of these I'm going to give a little bit on the rationale for choosing this subject, and also something about what we actually plan to incorporate within the module in terms of the syllabus. A little bit about the structure and what actually happened over the 5 days for each of these modules, and also touch on some of the feedback that we got in order to try and improve the modules. So the first module was adventure therapy. So this basically took place in October 2018. It was the first Advent module, and so I guess in a way we were kind of guinea pigs in terms of, well, the people who were organising this and also the people who were taking part in it. So there were 10 participants, and I think as per all the modules there was a mix of students and some businesses, and also a few project partners involved as well. So why do we choose adventure therapy? Well, it was felt that it hadn't really received a great deal of attention outside of academic circles, and therefore we thought that it was going to be a growing market, that there would be quite a bit of interest really in this kind of subject from participants across all three countries. And so really it was aimed as an introductory module that would give people a flavour of adventure therapy, and if they wanted more information, that they could actually sort of then pursue that. So in terms of what we actually set out to achieve really, so the learning outcomes were linked to things like an overview of the history of adventure therapy, where it actually came from, understanding the different applications and practical considerations, I guess in a business context, and then thinking about some of the creative and art-based practices and storytelling that might be incorporated within adventure therapy. So as per the other modules, day one began with a pre-task and some travel, and the participants were basically tasked with coming up with some sort of story or meaningful experience that was dear to them, that they had in the outdoors, and they would be asked to sort of talk about this during the module itself. So the second day was really a classroom session where some of these elements that I've spoken about already would be introduced to the participants, and they would get a sort of a basic grounding in what adventure therapy was. Day 3 was when the teaching moved to the outdoors. We were very keen to actually get some of the session actually taking place in the outdoors, and so on the afternoon of the third day, the participants basically walked up to a bothy, which was not too far from Fort William. A bothy being a mountain hut. It wasn't great weather, it has to be said. It was raining, which kind of introduces its own kind of challenges, but people still sort of found the time to to get to know each other. It was made more of a challenge because of that, and more of an interesting walk. And of course, by the time that they got to the hut, they were very grateful for the shelter and the warmth, and traditional Scottish meal, where they could kind of get to know each other and regale stories. Day 4, I'm pleased to say, was in stark contrast, and it was a very, very nice day, and made for a much easier return journey. And the purpose there really was to find objects, natural objects along the way, and to think about these as a reflection and representation of the adventure therapy experience. And then back in the classroom, the group shared some reflections and ideas really about the application of adventure therapy and its cultural relevance, and also about how it might be applied in the business context. So bearing in mind that this was the first of the 9 modules to take place, we weren't really sure exactly what was going to transpire. So we were very pleased with the feedback we got. Now the 2 instructors, Andy and Heidi, they were employed by the School of Adventure Studies, and also both have their own businesses as well. And I think people found them very, very engaging, very easy to get on with. And the way that they delivered the course was really professional, and really got people involved in the actual delivery of the course. A great deal of sort of participant involvement. So there wasn't really felt to be that much that people would want to actually improve. Maybe just a little bit about condensing the classroom side, so they have a bit more time to spend outside. And maybe just some minor logistical issues, but bearing in mind that this was actually the first of the modules. So the second module was guiding interpretation. So this was delivered by a woman called Steph. She also works for the School of Adventure Studies, and also has her own business, and she's very much involved in the training of adventure tourism businesses. So we had 7 participants from the 3 different countries. And the aim of this module really was to talk more about soft skills, consumer-facing soft skills. There's a lot been talked about the necessity for imparting hard skill on sort of teaching to participants. So whether that's in terms of ice climbing or mountain biking, for example, but not so much talked about the way you actually engage with consumers to deliver a high quality experience for them. So that's really what the rationale for guiding and interpretation was, to kind of understand the roles and responsibilities of the guide, how to deliver a quality experience, understanding things like a sense of place, writing from a natural perspective, understanding interpretation and how to deliver sort of great interpretive experiences, and then just thinking about how to improve your customer relationship skills really. So as per the other module, then the participants were tasked with thinking beforehand, while they were still travelling, about a short activity that they would want to develop and actually deliver while they were there on day 2 or day 3 of the actual module delivery. So on the second day, this was very much a classroom-based exercise in the morning, where we really started thinking about sort of some of these issues that I've already discussed, and also where we completed the Leave No Trace course. So in the afternoon we went to an outdoor environment, and this is where we saw how some of these elements will be put into practice, for example, such as minimizing the risk of fire and how to deal with human waste outdoors. And then visiting the Glen Nevis Visitor Centre, that basically allowed us to see some of these kind of interpretive measures actually in place and in practice. So day 3 also involves some classwork skills, thinking about nature interpretation, how to deliver a great customer experience. Also in the afternoon we went back out into Glen Nevis and we met some rangers who work for the Nevis Landscape Partnership, and they basically gave us some really interesting examples of natural interpretation, and we rounded that off with a tree planting exercise despite the rain. On the 4th day we went to Glenfinnan, a very sort of historical local site, and also out onto the coast, so we could actually see some sort of cultural natural interpretation in practice. And then we went on some short walks, and everybody had the opportunity to deliver their pre-task, really sort of as a way of engaging with the other participants and with Steph. So these were kind of great bonding exercises, good fun, and just a way of way of releasing a bit of tension, and also for people to actually sort of regale others with their tales. The feedback from that, well, I mean, I took part in that module, and I must admit I was very impressed by the way it was delivered. I'd known Steph previously, and I know that she's a very engaging personality. I found the group to be great fun, really relaxed, and I think that that was a large part of that was down to the way that Steph interacted with the group. She's also very professional. I mean, the way that she actually portrays the information and gets it over to you, I thought was excellent, and there weren't really very many criticisms, I must admit, and not much in the way of feedback. Critical feedback really to be incorporated in modifying the module. So the final module basically took place in September 2019, and it was called Coastal Interpretation. I didn't take part in this one, but some of my colleagues did. It was delivered by a man called Miles. He worked for the School of Adventure Studies at that time, and he's also the training director of Wilderness Scotland, which is a very highly regarded guiding company. We had 6 participants from the 3 countries, and really the aim of this was to build upon some of the elements of Steph's module and think about interpretation, but specifically in a coastal and maritime context. So basically, the elements of the module that were sort of put across to participants were really linked to things like coastal land management, not only in the present but also thinking about the past, how the landscape sort of was shaped by human settlement, thinking about cultural perspectives on the development of maritime tourism, and also thinking a little bit about folklore and how these stories can be told to consumers to help deliver a great customer experience. So the pre-task for this was basically to look at or think about how the coastal environment is special for the participant. What makes it special? What does it actually mean? And then this will be sort of portrayed to the other participants during the module. Again, it was a mixture of classroom and outdoor based. So the first session really was classroom based, thinking about just an introduction to some of the issues, setting the context really, thinking about elements such as coastal land management, understanding the role of human settlements. And this basically just was really an introductory overview to the coastal environment. And then after that, the participants took a trip out to the coast, to a heritage centre to see some of these interpretive elements actually in practice. So on the third day, probably the highlight was when the participants took part in a sea kayaking tour. So they went out on the coast to some small islands just off the coast, and started talking about coastal history, folklore, and marine and coastal ecology. So they learnt about foods, sort of shellfish, seaweeds, being able to recognise which ones are edible, which ones aren't, and then had a wild food inspired lunch in a Swedish teepee. And this was kind of further explored on day 4. So coastal ecology basically formed much of the focus, but this time on a beach context. And so after lunch in the Swedish teepee, basically the participants had the ability to access some of the resources that Miles would use in delivering his kind of stories or his training elements that were related to coastal interpretation. So this way, basically, people would actually sort of learn how to make the best use of resources and regale sort of narratives to their consumers. The feedback from the course was overall extremely positive. There was no negative feedback at all. I know from experience that Miles is a very engaging individual. He's been doing this for many years, and I think that sort of was proven to the participants. There was really not much in the way of criticism at all. It sounded like a really inspiring module, actually. Okay, that's my 15 minutes up. So I'm very pleased to be able to sort of talk about these modules and to have been involved in this particular element of the project. So thank you very much for listening, and hopefully we'll have the opportunity to discuss a few more elements related to the modules overall later on in the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, and from Scotland. Next up, we will hear from Finland, where they go over their modules.
Hello Iceland, hello Scotland, this is Finland calling. My name is Peter and I'm Senior Lecturer at Kajaani University of Applied Sciences. The next few minutes I'm going to tell you more about the 3 modules that we have been developing during this Erasmus Plus project called Advent. Stay with me. We developed our modules based on the feedback that received from small and middle-sized enterprises in the tourism business of the area. Our main target groups are vocational and university students, and of course representatives of these SMEs as well. Our 3 modules can stay alone, but the most you will get out of them by studying all of them as a unit. I walk you very fast through these 3 modules. The first one is called Local Knowledge. Here we're looking at the supply side of the business, the so-called pull factors that would attract tourists to the region. What is there we can offer and we can work with. The second module then is, as a matter of fact, looking from the demand side. It's about customer knowledge. So who are our customers? Where do they come from? What's their background? How can we serve them well? And the last step, and the last module then is our third module, productization, developing products out of the knowledge we received in the first modules. Follow me on a trip through the first module. Like I mentioned before, it was about local knowledge. So we looked at the supply side of an area. In this case, we went to Kuusamo, more specifically to the downhill ski destination Ruka, where we learned about the local pull factors that would attract tourists to the region and that we can use in order to build suitable products. On a theoretical basis, we first learned how to do a resources inventory, looking what kind of cultural, natural pull factors there are in the area, but also learning about the services that are already existing. So after the welcoming dinner, you can see here, we went out to explore the area. We had a lot of visits to companies that told us about their services and to whom they are suitable. Visited safari companies, but as you will see later, also other companies. We had to look at cultural values of the area. We listened to stories that locals told us. We also had, of course, walks around to see and get to know the natural sites of the area. And of course, we got to know the infrastructure of the destination itself. As I was mentioning, we were also visiting other program providers like, for example, reindeer herders with their traditions and history, but also safari companies that do husky safaris or snowmobile safaris. In the end, all participants had to pass a test in order to receive the Kuusamo Expert Passport. And this passport is actually used for workers in the area, workers in tourism, of course, in the area, to get familiar with the destination in order to be able to serve clients and customers better. Our second module was then about customer knowledge. So now we looked at things from the other side, from the demand side. We wanted to know who is the adventure traveler. In order to figure that out, we looked at the theory first. What is adventure? What is the adventure market like? Where does it take place, the adventure? And what is or who is the adventure tourist? We had a look at different personas of adventure travelers, and then we wanted to make our participants experience adventure themselves in order to understand what is the difference between hard adventure and soft adventure, for example, and for whom different activities, adventurous activities, are suitable. So we brought them on a boat, on a rowing boat, on the lake, on the fourth biggest lake in Finland, and they were rowing to a deserted island. And you wouldn't believe that this island is situated in the middle of Finland. It's really a pearl. A lot of sandy beaches. Well, the activities went on. Participants had to build up their own tent for the night. That was the place they were going to sleep. And of course, as there were no services on this island, they had to cook for themselves. Another adventure for a lot of people. We made them engage into some orienteering activities, like a treasure hunt on the island. We gave them a map and a task to find different hidden treasures on the island. Some more impressions of that island. There's a lot of stories around that island, as this old shipwreck, for example. And after coming back to the headquarters, to our university, we've discussed the experiences with our participants, and again asked the questions: to whom can we offer what kind of adventurous activities? And we figured out together that it's really important to know your customer in order to serve them well. The product for a Chinese customer will be totally different from the one that you offer, for example, a Middle European, a German one, let's say. Well, afterwards, we made our participants engage into an adventure race that we organized for them. During this adventure race, they had to orienteer around the premises of our university. As you see, it's very wild here already. So I'm standing quite next to our university buildings in the middle of the forest already. So the adventure race, that was about activities, like I said, orienteering, finding checkpoints and doing some activities at the checkpoints. One of them was, for example, abseiling, rappelling down a cliff. And other ones were more about problem solving or stamina, running up this hill, carrying some weights up and down, or solving some other problems. So, the help of that experience or these experiences during this module, we wanted to make participants experience different kind of adventure activities, and at the same time think about what is suitable to what target group, to what market. Now that we know about the pull factors of our destination, now that we have the local knowledge, and now that we are aware of who are our customers, we can start making products. So the topic of our third module was the process of productizing. In our case, we wanted to develop adventurous experiences. In order to do so, we were asking questions like, how does product development work? What is an experience? Can we create touristic experiences? Actually, is there a tool for that? And we looked actually at the theory part first. We introduced service design, blueprinting, and something that is called the experience pyramid that would actually help you to create adventurous touristic experiences. We went on with our questions, and it was about, can a country or a region productize their traditions? And it wasn't far-fetched to ask for Finland, what can we do with the sauna experience? Can we make a product out of it? And the next and last question we asked was, how can intangible assets be productized? In our case, it was about silence, for example, or the contrast of light and dark, of warm and cold. In order to find answers to these questions, we brought our customers away from campus again. And this time we brought them to actually my family's summer cottage. As you can see, it's not always only used during summer, so the name is misleading. it's also used during winter times. And now we let our participants do an act like the usual Finn would do an act when they come to their summer cottage. We wanted to give them the real, authentic sauna experience. So they had to chop wood, they had to hack a hole into the ice of the sea, of the lake. They had to warm up the sauna, they had to carry water from this ice hole to the sauna. All the things, all the activities that are authentically done by Finns as well. So we enjoyed the sauna together, we listened to stories and the history behind it. And then we sat together the open fire to enjoy some easy food, let's say, that Finns would enjoy at this point. The next day, we brought our participants to the national park, Hidenport, and we did some snowshoeing. Related to the snowshoeing, of course, there was this listening to the silence, for example. We introduced the idea of national parks and how they are managed to our customers, but then at the same time we always asked them, how would you pack that into a product and for whom this would be a suitable package and product. We had snacks at the fireplace. And then the evening, returning from our trip, we cooked ourselves. We had a chef there who brought ingredients, wild food, so to say, game, mushrooms, berries, everything that you can find and get from the Finnish forest. And he instructed us how to cook a menu, a dinner out, which we then enjoyed in the end. The whole day, of course, and days were already kind of a product that our participants engaged into. But then we also, of course, initiated discussions on how you could productize your region's assets, intangible assets, stories and history. The Advent project gave Kajaani University of Applied Sciences the possibility to further enhance and develop their knowledge in adventure tourism. The theory gained during this project is used in teaching. The adventure race is implemented as a student project every year and is offered to local companies as a team building event. The vocational school, KAU, uses their local knowledge module, specifically the Kuusamo Expert Passport, to train seasonal workers in the area of Kuusamo, which is highly appreciated by the SMEs in the region. We mainly received positive feedback for our modules from our participants. The project enabled Kajaani University of Applied Sciences to get to know better their target groups, namely students and their needs, and regional SMEs and their needs. At this point, the Finland team wants to thank all the other partners for their cooperation, for their hospitality, and for their input in this project. It was really good to meet all of you. All the best and greetings from Finland. Cheers.
Thank you, Peter from Finland. Next up, we welcome Eyjólfur Guðmundsson, the headmaster of Framhaldsskólinn í Austur-Skaftafellssýslu, who will be leading the panel discussion.
Hi everyone, I will take off the mask, I think. We plan to have some 50 minutes in discussion at the panel, but I think we will use maybe 30 minutes now. So we will maybe change it a bit from what we planned. I think maybe the most important thing for you out there in the panel, and I think I have it right, from Scotland there will be Steve and Clara, and from Finland Marjukka and Peter, and here from Iceland we have Þorri and Hulda. I think we need to look at our Advent project, our experience from that, and have some reflection on that experience. If you think about what is the most important thing that you from your experience at working in Advent, what did you learn, and can you use anything of that experience or learning in the future, and then what? I think we go from one person to another, and you can pick up the important thing that you think it's have a value for others to listen to. And just to remind you, we have educational part of this project, and the models we have been talking about, and persons that were directly involved in that, for example, Marjukka, Peter, and Hulda, and Þorri also in the last Icelandic project. And we also have a research part of this program. For example, Þorri and Steve and Claire could comment on that, I think. And SMEs part of the project is also important, but Hulda is not only educator, but also owner of a company, and she might be talking about her experience as a company owner and take part on it from that point of view. And also I'd like to remind you of we have been talking about the models. We also plan to have some innovation in this project, and we have some discussion about also certification if you're interested in that field. But maybe the most important thing to discuss and talk about is what we have been discussing and talk about in this morning is cooperation between these fields of education, research, and companies. And cooperation, what we have been doing in Advent, and how we can use that learning and reflect on that learning in the future, for example, in COVID times. I may be surprising you with a different approach in this, but we had also, I think most of you have the 7 questions that we were planning to talk about, but if you want to ask or answer those questions specifically, then that is okay also. But we just go with the flow and try to start this panel discussion. If I can ask you, Hulda, maybe to start.
Yes, gladly. I would like to start to talk a little bit as an educator about these module types A and B that we started out with. I was so lucky that I could participate in many of the module testings. So I experienced both modules that were designed as type A, and also the ones that were type B. Sorry, and A was to reflect on that these forms that were more maybe working with something that already existed, and the B type was totally new and made by the SMEs. And after attending both these module types, I realized that in some cases we had a mixture. So it was an AB module, if I could call it like that. It was a mixture of both. And from my point of view, that was the most engaging and most effective way of delivering these modules. So for me as a teacher, I think it is really important to use the knowledge and the technique of delivering information in an effective way. So I think it's really important to combine that together, the ideas of the SMEs and the tools that the educational institutions have. And we experienced that in some of the modules, and from my point of view, that was really effective way of doing things. So that is, what I wanted to say here, and that was a really good way to communicate. That is a really good way to open up the doors between the SMEs and the educational institutions. So from my point of view, AB is the thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Hulda. I want to remind you, those of you taking part in the panel, please turn on your camera so we can see you. But I would like to go to Finland now. If Marjuka, are you there? And can you take the next?
Or if Peter starts, can you hear us?
Marjuka, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Okay. Perfect. On to Peter.
Yeah. I wanted to get back to what Hulda said. Thank you for this input, Hulda. And you're right. Most of the modules were in the end an A-B mixture, and that made them very interesting. We here in Kajaani, University of Applied Sciences, we basically planned just type A modules, because we knew from the beginning that our companies, our company owners, they are not prepared and not willing to teach anyone, let's say. They are sharing things with our students every now and then. We invite them as an expert and things, but they wouldn't share their knowledge with other companies and company owners. That's a no-do. Probably it's a cultural thing here in Finland, I don't know. But I think we had the same experiences a bit in Scotland. I think Steve had a bit the same issues. So that's why we started to plan these modules as type A. But then in the end, well, we tried to always invite, like I said just before, invite some company representatives to share their knowledge with us during the
module, but just a short part. Just yeah, and the most of the teaching was then taken over by us lecturers here. But as the participants were also at most of the times entrepreneurs, there was a discussion coming up and started the modules then. And that was actually, like Hulda just said, very beneficial for all of us to learn from. It was the international view, and then the input of other entrepreneurs from other countries even. So this made these modules very beneficial for all the participants. So yeah, you're right when you say AB is the thing. Thank you from so far.
Anything more from Finland at this point, or?
No, I think we are fine. And
Okay.
let's hear what Steve has to say.
Then we go over to Scotland, maybe Steve or Clara.
Well, okay. Well, maybe I'll start. I'll start by saying thank you, Mariuka. Okay. Well, I get involved in a lot of these transnational projects, and I'm completely sold on the benefits of cooperation between different partners in different countries. I mean, for me, I think Advent was particularly good because of the nature of creating these face-to-face modules. A lot of Erasmus projects, including ones that I'm involved in, don't have face-to-face modules. They're online teaching, and you don't have this level of interaction that you do when you're actually testing them face-to-face. And I think that was really good. It was great to get local businesses and students and other stakeholders, such as decision makers, involved in that. And I mean, everybody I spoke to who went from Scotland really kind of loved that interaction, the direct interaction face-to-face with other people. And obviously that's just so important at the moment when we can't have this face-to-face interaction. So I think that particular element of Advent was very good, and I also like the fact that it introduced a lot of different module subjects. We had so many different types of subjects that we could explore, and these were things I guess that we probably wouldn't have thought of ourselves. And I think that was really important to see how other people approach different ideas. So, I mean, anything that was related to, say, ice caves or ice skating, we probably wouldn't have looked at that as a subject in Scotland, but it was great that we were involved in that, and there was a lot of positive feedback. And I think the same was true for quite some others as well. I do kind of remember that bear watching was going to be a module, and I think it was a good decision to not have bear watching. It's not totally relevant to Scotland at the moment. So I for myself, I'll stop talking there and maybe pick up on some other elements in a short while. I mean, I don't know whether, would you like to say something, Clara? You were a participant, I think, in 2 modules, and I think you have something to say, I'm sure, about your own experience.
Yeah, sure. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Hi. First of all, thanks for all your contributions. It was very interesting to hear all of you, and I'm also very glad that all of you look sound and well, which is not so obvious these times. So I was lucky enough to participate in 2 different module testing. The one in Iceland in 2019 summer on localism, gentrification and commodification in tourism, and the other one September 2019 in Scotland on coastal interpretation. So I think there were very different modules, because first of all, the Icelandic one was more focused on like changes and how these changes affect the nature, society, and of course the tourism phenomena over time. The second one in Scotland was much more focused on the coastal environment and how these gives you some sort of practical skills to use while selling your product. I think the two modules, although being very different between each other, have given me, they made me realize how important it is to connect the product you're selling to every aspect of the destination being visited. This basically gives a higher value to the product you're selling, but also at the same time a memorable experience for the visitor you're selling the product to. This means that in the long term, the visitor will always come back to the same kind of experience. And I think this gives you, gives a new whole opportunity for the tourism industry, like to start this sort of cycle that brings back visitors to experiences and services that are higher quality and offers a better service compared to other that are not so much focused on specific characteristics of the destination being visited. So I think that was very important, and I think I will always remember this in my future, to connect the product you're selling to every aspect of the society and kind of giving a better context of it while selling it. So yeah, I think that was it. Steve.
Thank you, Steve and Clara. And then return to Iceland again, Thorri.
Yes, hi again. My role in Advent was primarily that of a researcher, and this is not only because that's what I do most of the time, but it's also because I've been a teacher for 35 years, and I still teach. But my experience as a teacher has almost exclusively been towards much younger people than myself. So for me, it was very educational to be part of a project working with experienced adults for at least a large part. And it's striking to me that Eyjólfur mentioned cooperation, and we've heard about transnational cooperation within Advent, which was good, and is hugely important to a project like this. But there is a greater underlying cooperation, which I think we've started to see now here in Iceland, and hopefully in the other countries as well. And this sort of stems from the fact that when we're talking about vocational education and training with adults, we are in a different sort of environment, a learning environment from what people like myself would be in normally. We are working with experienced adults, people that have maybe years of experience in running a company, developing tours, guiding tours. And for us to really, I think, find the educational opportunities, then we need to think about ways of co-creating what we're doing, of working in a very open, interactive way with our students, because we are all learning together. And this means creating platforms where everybody is on equal footing, and where we can all basically learn together by being together, doing things, new things together. So that's it. And I would like to say also that this has strengthened my own views towards how I want to do research, especially in tourism. I want to use the same general approach of co-creation in my future research.
Thank you, Thorri. I was planning maybe to go another round and specifically look into the future. In that round, maybe we can talk about post-COVID time or COVID time. If you can see, we can use our experience and our reflection on our experience in the future or post-COVID times. And if you can, what specifically you can use from this project. If you go maybe to Finland again, Peter and Marjukka, can you comment on that?
Well, post-COVID times, we're waiting for them. As I said in the video already, we as lecturers and we as University of Applied Science, we have learned. We had time actually to work with these topics more in specific. So me as a lecturer, for example, I had resources through the project to get deeper knowledge in this area of adventure tourism. That was very beneficial for me personally as a teacher. But then also let's say as a university, we got more insights through these interviews, SMEs interviews, what they would expect us to teach or to teach to our students, what's the knowledge they need to come to their company. So this knowledge was very beneficial for us in order to develop our teaching. But came up, and that's probably Marjukka can speak about that. We saw also a problem in that, asking the SMEs, what should we teach? What should we deliver you?
Yes, and what we have been find out that even though the co-work with real life working connection is important and we use it actively in all the courses that we teach, but our role is also do the research and develop the education. So that's why we have been find out that the good way is also that we are giving the newest information to the companies, how the future is going to develop, how the markets are going, because the entrepreneurs should focus what to do that. They key skills and products instead of doing research and thinking about education, because that is our role, and we are seeing that also now from different perspective. I'm not saying that we are going to say to the companies what they should do and how they should do, but we should be also key roles to bring the new information and research information to the work field as well.
Mm. And we've seen that it's complicated to ask the question, what do you want from us to teach to you or to our students, to future employees? Because that is not a question that companies usually can answer to. It's just like Marjukka said, we should do the research, we should know, we should look into the future. Of course, we don't have the crystal ball here in front of us, but still, we should see the scenarios that might face us in the future, and we should prepare based on that, the SMEs and our students for the future, teach them, educate them accordingly. This is definitely something that we learned also during this project and came clear to us.
And we can use that knowledge to, especially in post-COVID times, because we are seeing that how the tourism industry and the companies are struggling at the moment, and now we have better understanding to help them as educators and a university, and how we can educate them, our students, and how we can put our efforts in the tourism industry and new rise of it.
Mm. And last but not least, we have now a wider network thanks to this project. that we can reach out for. We can reach out to Scotland, to Iceland, to our partners, ask for solutions to questions that we might face here, problems we might face here, and together we can think of good answers, good solutions for that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Finland. And then we turn to Scotland. Steve or Clara.
Yeah, okay. Well, my own thoughts, kind of building on what Peter and Mariuka have been saying, and also, I guess, building on what you talked about yourselves, Thori and Gudrun Thora, were really related to the nature of some of the modules. These ideas of what tourism might look like, or what we might want tourism to look like after the pandemic, that we want to think about ideas about sustainability, responsible tourism, and also think about, I think, the quality of products, really, and think ways that you can actually differentiate the products that you sell from your competitors. So, I mean, looking just for example at some of the modules that we developed in Scotland, the importance of guiding interpretation, developing your consumer-facing skills to develop a quality product, and also thinking about, I guess, the module on adventure therapy. I mean, these health aspects are obviously very important for us to think about now and will be going forward. And so I can see, great potential really for some of these modules for not only engaging with students, but also with businesses through continuing professional development. And I mean, I think in Scotland, I mean, something I was going to mention was about what we're actually doing with some of these modules. And I think one of the great